You've been lied to. They told you money was evil. They told you struggle was holy. They told you to wait your turn, stay humble, and hope something changes. But heaven didn't assign you to earth to stay broke, stay small, or stay silent. You were created for dominion, designed for wealth, and positioned for impact. And if you're still living beneath that truth, you're not humble. You're out of order. God doesn't get glory from your poverty. He gets glory from your productivity. He gets glory when you take territory, when you multiply, when you solve problems, when you move in purpose with power. But the reason you're not seeing overflow isn't because God's late. It's because you keep quitting when it gets hard. That's it. That's the word. God is testing you. Will you quit? Will you back down when it gets uncomfortable? Will you give up because it doesn't look how you imagined? Or will you stand? Will you push? Will you obey when it hurts? See, pressure isn't punishment, it's preparation. Delay isn't denial, it's development. You've been praying for success, but you don't realize this test is the door. And most people fail not because they lack talent, but because they lack tenacity. They want blessings, but they refuse the burden that comes first. They want public results, but they won't pass the private exam. So here's the first shift. If you won't obey in private, you can't prosper in public. You don't get influence without integrity. You don't get increase without stewardship. You don't get platforms without preparation. You want the fruit, but won't plant the seed. You're speaking prosperity, but living passively. You're asking for flow, but disobeying his order. Doesn't work like that. God is not mocked. He doesn't bless rebellion. He blesses alignment. He blesses the one who shows up when nobody's watching. He blesses the one who tithes when the bank account says not enough. He blesses the one who says yes to vision before the provision ever shows up. This ain't a hype message. This is a holy mandate. You want to prosper? Start obeying. Not when it feels good, not when it's convenient. Obey when it's quiet. Obey when it's dark. Obey when it's dry. Because if you can obey in the wilderness, God will trust you in the promised land. But if you keep folding in the fire, don't expect to carry the flame. This is the season where God is watching what you do when no one else is watching. And he's not asking for perfection. He's demanding obedience. Because obedience is what opens the door to overflow. Let me tell you something that'll shake your core and call you higher. God's delay is not denial. It's a demand for discipline. And the reason you're still in that waiting season isn't because God forgot about you. It's because you haven't matured enough to manage what you're asking for. You're praying for increase, but your habits still reflect decrease. You want overflow, but your stewardship says you're still stuck in survival mode. God is not going to bless you beyond your level of discipline. Why? Because blessing without structure leads to self-destruction. You want God to accelerate your success, then you better accelerate your submission. Because God's timing is perfect, but he's not in a hurry to bless disobedience. You don't schedule divine promotio with your tears. You activate it with your faith and your follow through. You want breakthrough? Start waking up when you say you will. Stop talking about your goals and start tithing like you actually trust God. Don't say God is my source and then live like Visa's your provider. That's double-minded. And double-minded people receive nothing. That's Bible. Listen, God is not holding your blessing hostage. He's holding it in trust. He's waiting until he can trust you to carry it with integrity. You want kingdom level wealth? You want generational legacy? You want to own businesses, lead people, and steward millions? Then why are you still playing around with $100 decisions? Why are you buying things that depreciate instead of building assets that appreciate? Why are you robbing God of what's already his and expecting him to pour out favor? Let me be clear. Your delay is divine. And it's divine because it's forming you. It's not about the thing. It's about the version of you that God is developing in the process. You want success, but God wants strength. You want the platform, but God wants refinement. Because if he gave it to you now, with your current inconsistency, your scattered thinking, your lack of financial clarity, you would ruin it before you ever realize what it could have been. So he's stretching you, he's testing you, and if you fail the test, he'll give you another one, not because he's punishing you, but because he's still committed to your development. You say you trust God, but trust looks like discipline. You don't trust God if you can't stick to a budget. You don't trust God if you won't delay gratification. You don't trust God if you fold every time it gets uncomfortable. Trust looks like stewardship. Trust looks like consistency. Trust looks like showing up before the results show up. And that leads me to this, and I need you to hear me with spiritual ears. You don't have a money problem, you have a mastery problem. You're out here chasing cash, but you haven't mastered your schedule, you haven't mastered your emotions, you haven't mastered your disciplines. You think the issue is income, but the issue is identity. Because if God dropped $1 million in your account today and you still operate with a poverty spirit, it'll be gone in a year. You cannot multiply what you refuse to manage. You can't attract wealth if you're still allergic to wisdom. You can't walk in abundance while making broke decisions. And you can't expect God to open doors when you still won't open your Bible. This is bigger than budgeting. This is about becoming. You must become the kind of person who can handle what you're praying for. See, wealth is not money. Wealth is mastery. Mastery of thought. Mastery of time. Mastery of obedience. Wealth is knowing how to build systems that serve people. Wealth is knowing how to solve problems that create impact. Wealth is the byproduct of divine alignment and radical discipline. And if you don't have wealth yet, it's because you haven't aligned and you haven't mastered. Let me give it to you. You don't rise to the level of your vision. You fall to the level of your systems. And your current systems are a reflection of what you've mastered or what you haven't. If you've mastered procrastination, you'll see delay. If you've mastered excuses, you'll live in limitation. If you've mastered discipline, you'll start seeing acceleration. You want to become a kingdom entrepreneur, then start acting like one. Stop waiting on motivation and build habits that move with or without it. Start owning your time like it's a currency, because it is. Start commanding your mornings instead of reacting to your problems. Stop renting your future to fear and start owning it with faith. The enemy doesn't have to destroy you. He just has to distract you long enough to stop you from mastering what matters. You keep thinking it's a spiritual attack, but sometimes it's just disorganization. Sometimes it's just you refusing to grow up and take responsibility. And if that stings, good. Truth that doesn't challenge you will never change you. If God gave you vision, then you've got a stewardship assignment. Vision is not a fantasy, it's a divine contract. It comes with terms, and one of those terms is mastery. You can't complain about what you tolerate. You can't pray for increase and then mishandle the seed. God doesn't reward your need, He rewards your faithfulness. So here's your reality check. If you don't master the small, you'll never multiply the large. If you don't dominate the day, you won't dominate the decade. If you don't discipline your decisions, your destiny will stay stuck. And don't tell me God's not moving. He already moved when He gave you breath, when He gave you grace, when He gave you the vision. Now it's your move. This is not about hustle. This is not about hype. This is about holiness. This is about aligning your habits with heaven. This is about becoming the kind of leader, builder, and steward that the kingdom can trust with influence and income. And once you become that person, the money will come, the impact will come, the doors will open, because when discipline meets divine timing, nothing can stop the blessing. Not haters, not lack, not delay, not doubt, nothing. You don't have a delay problem. You don't have a money problem. You have a discipline problem. You have a mastery problem. And the moment you fix that, everything changes. Let's go straight to the core. If you won't obey in private, you can't prosper in public. Stop praying for harvest when you won't plant the seed. That's not motivational fluff. That's kingdom law. And until you get that deep in your spirit, you'll keep asking God for results you haven't earned through obedience. Let me break this down like a business mentor, coaching a millionaire in the making. Because that's exactly what you are if you stop playing with your process. You want to be elevated in public. You want contracts, clients, capital, and influence. Good. But here's the non-negotiable. God will never promote what he cannot trust. You're asking for increase while you're still inconsistent in the secret place. You want millions but can't manage mornings. You want God to bless your business, but you won't bless God with your budget. That's spiritual fraud. And heaven doesn't fund fraud. Let's talk real. Private obedience is the audition for public overflow. You're being measured. Can you tithe when nobody knows what your bank account looks like? Can you serve when nobody claps? Can you stay disciplined when no one is watching and the applause is gone? Because that's where the real power is. That's where mastery is developed. Obedience in the hidden seasons is what prepares you for harvest in the visible ones. You think you're ready because you're gifted. But gifting without obedience is dangerous. That's why some of you are frustrated. You have talent but no traction. You have vision but no victory. Why? Because you refuse to obey in the dark. You want spotlights without sacrifice. But God doesn't elevate performers. He promotes servants. You're waiting on a breakthrough, but heaven's waiting on your obedience. You're quoting Jeremiah 29:11, but you haven't lived out Luke 16:10. Who is faithful in little will be faithful in much. You're praying, God, bless me with more, but God is saying you haven't been faithful with what you already have. Stop asking God for rain if you won't plow the field. Stop praying for doors to open when you won't knock with consistency. Stop saying, Lord, enlarge my territory when you still complain about your current responsibility. This is the truth that disrupts mediocrity. You don't attract wealth with wishes. You attract it with work. You don't walk in overflow because you speak it. You walk in overflow because you sow it. And I'm not just talking about money. I'm talking about mindset, mastery, and movement. What seeds are you sowing in your business, in your body, in your relationships? Because whatever you plant, you will harvest. That's Galatians 6:7. Do not be deceived. God is not mocked, for whatever a man sows, that shall he also reap. Sow laziness, reap poverty. Sow excuses, reap stagnation. Sow obedience, reap kingdom multiplication. And here's the thing. Most people aren't stuck because of lack of opportunity. They're stuck because of a lack of obedience to basic principles. They treat God's word like a suggestion. They treat wisdom like it's optional. They treat stewardship like it's for when the money comes in, not realizing it's the very reason the money hasn't come. You keep waiting for a big moment to prove yourself, but God is watching how you handle the small ones. You want clients to flood in? Then obey and sharpen your service in private. You want to build a 7-figure business? Then obey and build a structure that can carry it. You want God to bless your platform? Then obey and develop private character that can support the weight of public favor. Let me say this loud and clear. You're not being overlooked. You're being observed. Heaven is watching what you do when the spotlight's off. Do you worship without the crowd? Do you show up on time even when no one's tight? Or do you wait for increase to act holy? You cannot fake obedience. It shows up in the fruit. And the lack of fruit in your life is not because the seed didn't work. It's because you never planted it with faith and followed through with action. Let me flip the table real quick. You're not broke. You're undisciplined. You're not stuck. You're inconsistent. You're not blocked. You're disobedient. Now, I say that with love, but I won't water it down, because truth without clarity is just noise. And you don't need another inspirational moment. You need a decision that aligns your life with kingdom law. You can't outpray disobedience. You can't outgive rebellion. You can't fake fruit. You either sow or you don't. You either obey or you don't. And the marketplace, just like the kingdom, rewards the diligent, not the dramatic. So here's the hard question. What seed have you actually sown this week? Not intentions, not prayers. What discipline did you execute? What actions did you take that align with your calling? What financial decisions did you make that reflect trust in God? Stop calling it waiting on God when you're just waiting on convenience. Stop blaming the devil for what your disobedience is causing. Stop asking for miracles while you ignore principles, because God is not mocked. He's not confused. He's not impressed by spiritual language and emotional hype. He honors obedience, period. So if you want public prosperity, master private obedience. If you want a public harvest, plant private seed. And if you want to walk in kingdom wealth, submit to kingdom law. This is your moment to shift. You've been circling the same mountain long enough. You've fasted, you've prayed. Now it's time to plant and obey. Because when seed meets obedience and obedience meets faith, harvest is inevitable. Faith that folds under pressure was never faith at all. If your faith crumbles when the pressure hits, it was never faith, it was fantasy. Real faith doesn't quit when it gets hard. Real faith fights when it gets dark. You keep saying you believe, but you're still begging for proof. You keep speaking NG victory, but every obstacle sends you spiraling. That's not faith. That's fear dressed in religious language. God's not checking how loud you shout. He's checking how deeply you stand when your back's against the wall. The furnace is where real belief is forged. You don't grow under comfort. You grow under conflict. So stop folding like a lawn chair every time life pushes you. Pressure reveals posture. And if your posture is weak, it's not a sign to give up. It's a call to grow up. If God allowed the heat, it's because he put something inside you that fire can't kill. Act like it. You're not being punished. You're being prepared. Stop acting like the process is punishment. It's not. It's preparation. You think delay means denial. Wrong. It means development. You're crying about the wait when God is building your capacity. Why? You're mad that it's taking long, but you haven't mastered what's required at this level. God's not withholding success. He's protecting it. Because premature promotion will destroy you. This isn't punishment. This is pruning. This is the gym where your spirit gets ripped. This is where trust becomes muscle, where vision becomes clarity, where obedience becomes reflex. You're not stuck. You're in training. And the longer you resist it, the longer you delay the release. Embrace the stretch, submit to the shaping. God's preparing you for something you can't carry unless you get stronger. And he loves you too much to let you skip the reps. God funds purpose, not pity. God is not an ATM for your emotional breakdowns. He doesn't release provision because you're broke. He releases it because you're aligned. He funds purpose, not pity. You can cry all day, but if your life isn't aligned with divine assignment, the heavens stay closed. Purpose attracts provision because purpose solves problems. And money follows solutions, not sorrow. Stop begging God to bail you out and start building what he called you to create. He's not moved by your excuses. He's moved by your execution. You don't get supernatural overflow just because you're struggling. Get it when your work matches your word. Show God you're serious. Steward what you've got. Build what he told you to build. Get your systems in order. Handle your finances like someone who's ready for overflow. You're not waiting on God's provision. He's waiting on your participation. Excuses are the language of the broke. Excuses are the currency of the poor. Every time you say, I don't have time, I don't know how, it's too hard, you're writing spiritual checks that bounce in the realm of success. Excuses don't cash in the kingdom. You want increase, kill the excuse. You want clarity, starve the excuse. Wealth doesn't bow to your comfort, it bows to your consistency. You say you want financial freedom, but your habits scream fear. You say you want to build a business, but you still procrastinate every morning. You say you trust God, but you trust your limitations more than his promise. Excuses keep you small, broke, and spiritually bankrupt. Burn them, every single one. Until you take 100% ownership, success will keep passing you by. Winners build, whiners blame. Which one are you today? Prosperity is not a reward, it's a responsibility. Stop chasing prosperity like it's a lottery win. It's not a reward for being spiritual, it's a responsibility for being obedient. Deuteronomy 8:18 says God gives you power to get wealth, not to sit on it, but to establish his covenant. That means wealth isn't just for your comfort, it's for your calling. You're not blessed just to flex. You're blessed to fund the mission, to employ people, to impact nations, to finance kingdom projects. If God can't trust you to multiply $1,000 0 cents, why would he hand you $100,000 0 cents? Prosperity is stewardship on display. Wealth with wisdom, cash with character. You don't wait for it, you prepare for it. You build systems, you invest in knowledge, you tithe, you budget, you grow. You stop treating prosperity like it's optional and start living like it's your assignment, because it is. Kingdom success demands total submission, not partial effort. You can't halfway your way into full victory. God doesn't bless the lukewarm. Revelation 3:16 says he spits them out. That means your half-done plans, your halfway obedience, your part-time faith, it all disqualifies you. You want success in the kingdom? It demands everything. Your mindset, your money, your mornings, your mission. You don't give God Sundays and keep your business out of it. He's Lord of all or not at all. That means your marketing, your pricing, your products, all of it must submit to his standard. Total submission births unstoppable favor. Partial effort just creates frustration. Stop praying like a lion and working like a lamb. Stop asking for full harvest when you only gave half seed. When you go all in, the kingdom floods in. It's not magic, it's law, and heaven only backs what's fully surrendered. Let me tell you something, and you better hear it in your spirit. This is your line in the sand moment. You've heard enough. You've prayed enough. You've waited long enough. Now it's time to move. Not tomorrow, not when it feels easy, not when you get another confirmation, now. Because heaven is not moved by your feelings, it is moved by your faithfulness. You were not born for average. You were not assigned to this earth to survive. You were called to dominate, to multiply, to reign, to build, to carry the fullness of your God-given assignment without apology. But you can't do that with weak obedience. You can't do that with a broke mindset. You can't fulfill a kingdom purpose while entertaining poverty habits. This is not about hype. This is about alignment. God is ready to release provision, favor, opportunity, overflow, but he's not pouring into empty vessels who refuse to get in position. Get your house in order, get your heart in order, get your money in order, get your mind in order, because the gates are open, but only the obedient can walk through them. Don't you dare shrink back. Don't you dare let fear talk you out of what God already promised. Don't you dare settle for another broke season when heaven already wrote your victory. You've got a calling to answer, a business to build, a legacy to leave, a kingdom to fund. So stop negotiating with excuses. Stop asking for shortcuts, and stop letting comfort rob you of your covenant. This is your moment to rise, to go all in, to obey without delay, to sow with faith, to build with fire, to move like you're already funded by heaven, because you are. God's not looking for the most talented, he's looking for the most surrendered. So here's the final word. God has already said yes. Now it's your turn. The harvest is waiting. Move like you're chosen or stay broke like you're cursed. Your destiny don't need your feelings. It needs your decision. Ladies and gentlemen, champions in the making, let me ask you a question. Who told you success was supposed to take forever? Who told you you have to grind in the dark for decades before the world sees your light? Let me wake you up today. You don't need a decade, you need a decision. And here's the truth they don't want to tell you. Success is not something you chase. Success is something you attract by the person you become. And if you want to become that person, you've got to brainwash yourself. Yeah, I said it, brainwash yourself. Success is attracted, not chased. That's the principle most people overlook when they find themselves constantly grinding, hustling, and spinning their wheels without getting results. See, we've been programmed from an early age to believe that the harder we chase something, the more we deserve it. That if we wake up earlier than everyone else, if we outwork the competition, if we sacrifice everything for the goal, then eventually success will reward us out of pity or respect. But that's not how success works. Success doesn't respond to desperation. Success doesn't show up just because you're tired. Success is like a magnet. It is drawn to who you are becoming, not just what you are doing. When you operate from a mindset of chasing, you're saying to the universe, I don't have this thing and I'm trying to earn it, and you reinforce the idea of lack. The energy of chasing is rooted in fear, scarcity, and not enoughness. And when you radiate that kind of energy, you don't attract success, you repel it. But when you begin to shift internally, when you start thinking, speaking, and moving like someone who already embodies success, then success starts to find you. Because now your thoughts are aligned with the outcome. Your actions are aligned with the vision. Your energy is aligned with abundance. That's when the game changes. Let's make this practical. If you're chasing success, you're constantly looking for it outside of yourself. You're waiting for the big opportunity, the perfect connection, the lucky break. You're living in reaction to the world instead of creating your world. But when you become the kind of person success is attracted to, everything flips. You stop hoping for the door to open and you become the one who builds doors. You stop networking just to get something and you start becoming someone people want to be around. Think about the most successful people you know, the ones who walk in a room and shift the atmosphere. They're not chasing anyone. They're not desperate for validation. They carry themselves with confidence, clarity, and conviction. That's not arrogance, that's alignment. They've already seen the outcome in their minds, so they're not wondering if it's going to happen. They're just walking toward what they've already decided is theirs. And here's the truth. Success follows certainty. When you are certain of who you are, when you are grounded in your identity and your purpose, you no longer need to beg for opportunities, you attract them. People feel the certainty, they're drawn to it. Clients want to pay you, doors start to open, ideas start flowing, not because you're lucky, but because you've become magnetic. This is why personal growth is the foundation of prosperity. You can't attract what you haven't become. You can't receive what your mindset rejects. If deep down you believe you're unworthy of wealth, of love, of freedom, no matter how hard you hustle, you'll sabotage it when it shows up. But if you renew your mind, if you shift your identity, you start aligning with higher outcomes, you begin to carry yourself differently. You begin to speak life, vision, power into your situation. You begin to act as if the thing you desire is already done, already yours, already real. That's when success begins to notice you. Not because you begged for it, but because you became the kind of person who is always going to have it. Success is not about chasing the result. It's about transforming into the version of yourself that naturally creates that result. That version of you already exists. Your job is to stop running after success like it's somewhere far off in the distance and start becoming the version of you that success has been looking for all along. You're already brainwashed. Reprogram with intention. Whether you realize it or not, from the moment you were born, your mind has been absorbing information, beliefs, and behaviors from the environment around you. Your parents, your teachers, the media, your community, they all played a role in shaping how you see the world and how you see yourself. And the majority of that programming, it was not designed to make you wealthy, powerful, or fulfilled. It was designed to keep you safe, small, and obedient. We grow up hearing things like, don't get your hopes up. Money doesn't grow on trees. People like us don't do things like that. These phrases seem harmless, but over time, they become mental scripts that run on autopilot in the background of our lives. They shape what we believe we're capable of. They determine whether we go after opportunities or shrink back in fear. They decide if we play big or settle for average. This is brainwashing. It doesn't come from some shadowy figure in a secret room. It comes from repetition, from emotion, from authority. And once it's installed, it runs your life whether you realize it or not. The real trap is not that we've been programmed. It's that we've accepted the programming as truth. We assume our thoughts are our own. We assume our limitations are logical, but what if the thoughts you think every day were never even yours to begin with? What if someone else's fear became your default setting? What if the beliefs that guide your daily decisions were planted in you before you were old enough to question them? This is why reprogramming is not just a good idea, it's a necessity. You don't rise to the level of your potential, you fall to the level of your programming. If your internal operating system is still running on scarcity, fear, guilt, or shame, no amount of hustle will override that. You'll always find a way to come back down to what you believe you deserve. So if you want to change your life, you've got to change your mind. You've got to uninstall the lies and install the truth. And that doesn't happen by accident. It happens through intention. Reprogramming starts with awareness. You can't fix what you're not aware of. Begin noticing your thoughts. When you think about wealth, what comes up? Do you feel empowered or guilty? When you see someone successful, do you feel inspired or bitter? When you fail at something, do you call yourself names or see it as a lesson? These reactions aren't random. They're rooted in your subconscious conditioning. Once you start becoming aware of the programming, the next step is to flood your mind with new information. You need to immerse yourself in new beliefs, new perspectives, and new standards. This is not a one-time fix, it's a daily discipline. Listening to empowering messages, reading transformational books, speaking affirmations, surrounding yourself with people who live at the level you want to reach. You don't just dabble in truth, you soak in it. You don't just try to be positive, you train your brain to reject the lies it once believed. And here's the powerful part. You get to choose your new programming. You get to decide what's true for you now. You're not limited by your past. You're not stuck with the beliefs you grew up with. You're not a prisoner to what society says you should be. You have the power to intentionally install a mindset of abundance, of purpose, of boldness. You can teach your mind to expect greatness. You can train your emotions to respond to challenges with confidence. You can literally rewire your brain to support the future you're creating. You're already brainwashed. Reprogram with intention. Whether you realize it or not, from the moment you were born, your mind has been absorbing information, beliefs, and behaviors from the environment around you. Your parents, your teachers, the media, your community, they all played a role in shaping how you see the world and how you see yourself. And the majority of that programming, it was not designed to make you wealthy, powerful, or fulfilled. It was designed to keep you safe, small, and obedient. We grow up hearing things like, don't get your hopes up, money doesn't grow on trees, people like us don't do things like that. These phrases seem harmless, but over time they become mental scripts that run on autopilot in the background of our lives. They shape what we believe we're capable of. They determine whether we go after opportunities or shrink back in fear. They decide if we play big or settle for average. This is brainwashing. It doesn't come from some shadowy figure in a secret room. It comes from repetition, from emotion, from authority. And once it's installed, it runs your life whether you realize it or not. The real trap is not that we've been programmed, it's that we've accepted the programming as truth. We assume our thoughts are our own. We assume our limitations are logical. But what if the thoughts you think every day were never even yours to begin with? What if someone else's fear became your default setting? What if the beliefs that guide your daily decisions were planted in you before you were old enough to question them? This is why reprogramming is not just a good idea, it's a necessity. You don't rise to the level of your potential, you fall to the level of your programming. If your internal operating system is still running on scarcity, fear, guilt, or shame, no amount of hustle will override that. You'll always find a way to come back down to what you believe you deserve. So if you want to change your life, you've got to change your mind. You've got to uninstall the lies and install the truth. And that doesn't happen by accident, it happens through intention. Reprogramming starts with awareness. You can't fix what you're not aware of. Begin noticing your thoughts. When you think about wealth, what comes up? Do you feel empowered or guilty? When you see someone successful, do you feel inspired or bitter? When you fail at something, do you call yourself names or see it as a lesson? These reactions aren't random. They're rooted in your subconscious conditioning. Once you start becoming aware of the programming, the next step is to flood your mind with new information. You need to immerse yourself in new beliefs, new perspectives, and new standards. This is not a one-time fix, it's a daily discipline. Listening to empowering messages, reading transformational books, speaking affirmations, surrounding yourself with people who live at the level you want to reach. You don't just dabble in truth, you soak in it. You don't just try to be positive, you train your brain to reject the lies it once believed. And here's the powerful part. You get to choose your new programming. You get to decide what's true for you now. You're not limited by your past. You're not stuck with the beliefs you grew up with. You're not a prisoner to what society says you should be. You have the power to intentionally install a mindset of abundance, of purpose, of boldness. You can teach your mind to expect greatness. You can train your emotions to respond to challenges with confidence. You can literally rewire your brain to support the future you're creating. Flood your mind with truth. Starve the lies. The thoughts that dominate your mind shape the results that dominate your life. Every single day, your brain is being influenced by what you watch, what you hear, what you say, and most importantly, what you allow. Most people don't realize that their current level of success or struggle is simply the byproduct of what they've been feeding their minds consistently. You can't expect to live a life of power and purpose if you're constantly consuming fear, doubt, and mediocrity. Your mind is fertile soil. Whatever you plant in it and nurture will grow. If you keep planting the seeds of negativity, of worry, of scarcity, don't be surprised when your life begins to reflect that. Lies show up in subtle ways. It's the voice that says, you're not ready yet. It's the feeling that says, what if I fail? It's the whisper that tells you, you'll never be like them. And the more you entertain these thoughts, the more power they gain. Lies don't need to be true to influence you. They just need to be repeated. They grow through repetition and agreement. Every time you agree with a lie, you reinforce its place in your mindset. You don't need someone else to sabotage you when you've been unknowingly sabotaging yourself with silent, self-defeating beliefs. The way to break this pattern is to intentionally flood your mind with truth. And truth isn't just positive thinking. Truth is based in power. Truth is rooted in your identity, your purpose, your potential. Truth reminds you that you were created with intention, for impact, and with more inside you than you've been showing the world. Truth reminds you that failure isn't final, that mistakes are part of the journey, and that you were born to rise, not stay stuck. Flooding your mind with truth is not a casual practice. It's a full-on commitment. It means you begin every day with intention. It means you speak life into your goals before you let the world speak fear into your spirit. It means you monitor what you consume. If a show, a conversation, or a social media feed makes you feel less than, unworthy, or anxious, you cut it off. You're not being rude, you're protecting your environment. Because your mental environment is just as important as your physical one. You can't grow in toxic soil. This is why it's so important to immerse yourself in the right voices. Listen to speakers who call out the greatness in you. Read books that challenge your limitations. Write affirmations that align with the person you're becoming, not the person you've been. And say them until your voice becomes louder than your doubts. Don't wait for belief to show up. Build it one thought at a time. Speak it until it sticks. When you flood your mind with truth, something shifts. You begin to see possibilities where you once saw problems. You begin to take risks where you once hesitated. You begin to show up as a leader, even if the world still sees a beginner. And at the same time, you starve the lies. Lies can't survive in an environment saturated with truth. They can't breathe when you stop feeding them with attention. Every time you choose to respond with confidence instead of fear, every time you say I can instead of I can't, you are shrinking the power of the lie and strengthening the truth. This practice is not about hype, it's about alignment. It's about aligning your thoughts with your vision, your beliefs with your destiny, your words with your purpose. You weren't designed to be average. You weren't built for small thinking or safe living. But if you want to walk in that truth, you have to keep your mind so full of it that there's no room left for anything else. Act like your future self now. The person you want to become is not waiting for you 10 years down the road. That version of you already exists right now in your decisions, in your habits, in the way you carry yourself, in the way you speak, think, and respond. Most people delay their transformation because they're waiting for something external to validate their next step. They wait for the title, the income, the recognition before they give themselves permission to operate like the person they were always meant to be. But success doesn't work like that. Success responds to identity. You don't step into the life you want by waiting. You step into it by aligning with the version of you who already lives it. You can't keep showing up with the mindset of who you were and expect to get the results of who you're becoming. The two are not compatible. Your current comfort zone is built on the behaviors, beliefs, and boundaries of your past. But if you want new outcomes, you need to start embodying the energy of your future. And that means acting in advance of the evidence. That means making decisions based on vision, not validation. That means upgrading the way you think before your circumstances change. When you act like your future self, you begin to change the atmosphere around you. People treat you differently, not because they've changed, but because you've changed how you see yourself. When you walk into a room like you belong there, you start attracting different conversations, different opportunities, different relationships, not because you're faking it, but because you're finally stepping into who you were always supposed to be. This mindset requires boldness. It takes courage to carry yourself as if you've already achieved what others are still trying to figure out. It takes discipline to speak the language of abundance when your bank account doesn't match it yet. It takes faith to show up every day with the posture of a leader, the confidence of a winner, the presence of someone who has already arrived, even when no one else sees it. But this is the work that separates the dreamers from the doers. This is what makes someone unstoppable. Your future self doesn't procrastinate. Your future self doesn't make decisions based on fear. Your future self doesn't shrink to fit into old environments. So if you want to start collapsing the timeline between where you are and where you're called to be, you need to begin by asking every day, how would the future version of me move right now? Would they wake up early or hit snooze? Would they negotiate with excuses or move in discipline? Would they settle for distractions or commit to purpose? This is about integrity with your future. Acting like your future self isn't about pretending, it's about practicing. It's about choosing every moment to show up with intentionality. You're no longer reacting to life, you're designing it. You're no longer waiting for success to prove you're ready, you're proving it through your consistency. Every time you act like the person you want to become, you send a message to your subconscious that this is who you are now. And the more you do it, the faster your brain and body begin to believe it. Your language changes, your posture shifts, your expectations rise. You stop tolerating what you used to accept. You set higher standards for how you live, how you lead, how you love, and how you think. Because the future version of you doesn't operate in survival mode, they operate in overflow. They think in solutions, not problems. They create momentum, not excuses. They walk in purpose, not confusion. And when you start acting like that version of you now, the world doesn't have a choice but to catch up. 21 days of alignment can change everything. You don't need a lifetime to change your life. You need a short, focused, intentional period where you stop negotiating with your old self and step fully into alignment with your purpose. 21 days of focused action, disciplined thought, and unwavering vision can do more for your growth than years of scattered effort. The problem isn't that people don't want to succeed. It's that they haven't committed to alignment long enough for transformation to take root. When your actions, thoughts, words, and environment all come into agreement with the person you're becoming, things begin to shift quickly. Alignment isn't about perfection, it's about congruence. It's when your beliefs match your behavior, when your vision is reflected in your choices, when your goals are supported by your habits. Most people are stuck not because they lack talent or opportunity, but because their lives are out of alignment. They say they want one thing, but they live like they want something else. They speak abundance but act in scarcity. They dream of impact but move in fear. This gap between desire and discipline is where frustration lives. But when you close that gap, even for a short time, momentum begins to build. That's what 21 days can do. It's long enough to create a shift, to install new habits, to start rewiring old beliefs. It's short enough that you can commit fully without excuses. It doesn't matter where you're starting from. It matters how locked in you're willing to be. For 21 days, you make your growth non-negotiable. You wake up with purpose. You flood your mind with truth. You speak like the leader you're becoming. You move like the version of you who already has what you're working toward. And when you do this consistently, even the things that felt far off start to move closer. Momentum is built through consistency, not intensity. You don't need to do everything at once. You just need to stay in alignment every day, no matter how small the steps seem. That means saying no to distractions that don't serve your vision. That means adjusting your circle if the people around you can't handle your growth. That means showing up with discipline on the days you don't feel motivated. Because alignment isn't based on emotion, it's based on decision. You decide who you are. You decide what you stand for. You decide what kind of future you're creating. And you back that decision with aligned action. What makes alignment powerful is that it removes confusion. You stop second guessing yourself. You stop asking for permission. You stop chasing 10 different paths and start walking boldly down one. When your energy is focused, your power multiplies. Things that used to take effort become automatic. You don't have to force confidence when your habits reinforce it. You don't have to manufacture motivation when your environment supports your elevation. Everything begins to work together because you brought yourself into harmony. The beauty of 21 days is that it becomes a blueprint. Once you see what you can shift in 3 weeks of alignment, you stop underestimating your power. You start trusting yourself more. You start realizing that change isn't this massive mountain, it's a decision made daily. And when you look back at who you were before those 21 days started, you won't recognize that version anymore. Not because your entire life will be perfect, but because you'll be thinking differently, speaking differently, showing up differently. You'll have proven to yourself what's possible when you stop drifting and start aligning. Let me ask you something. Have you ever faced a moment so tough that you thought, God, where are you? Maybe everything you built started crumbling. Maybe the people you trusted walked away. Maybe the doors you knocked on stayed closed. But I'm here to tell you this. Just because it's hard doesn't mean God is absent. Just because you can't trace his hand doesn't mean you can't trust his heart. So today, we're going to talk about how trusting God in difficult times isn't just possible, it's powerful, it's profitable, and it's purposeful. Pain has purpose. That's a truth many struggle to accept, especially when life feels like it's falling apart. But if you take a closer look, pain isn't just something we survive, it's something that shapes us. It doesn't come to destroy you. It comes to develop you. When you begin to see pain through the lens of purpose, everything shifts. You stop asking, why me? And start asking, what is this teaching me? Because here's the truth. Every challenge, every trial, every painful season carries within it a seed of greatness if you choose to grow through it, not just go through it. Pain has a way of revealing what comfort hides. When everything is going well, you don't question things, you don't stretch, and you don't evolve. But pain forces you out of the shallow waters and into the deep end, where trust in God becomes real, raw, and powerful. Pain pushes you to pray like never before. It pulls out strength you didn't know you had. It births wisdom, maturity, resilience, and purpose that only the fire of adversity can produce. You see, the fire doesn't destroy gold, it refines it. And your pain, when surrendered to God, becomes the refining fire that brings out your value. Let's make this real with an example. Imagine a young man who loses his job unexpectedly. Bills are piling up, fear creeps in, and doors that once seemed open now feel slammed shut. On the surface, it looks like failure, but during those months of uncertainty, he discovers gifts he never used before. He starts helping friends with their business strategies, using his natural talents to bring in new clients. Eventually, he launches his own consulting company, not because he planned it, but because pain pushed him. What looked like a setback was actually a set-up. Without losing the job, he would have never stepped into his purpose. That's what pain does. It pushes you into places you are too comfortable to walk into yourself. It shifts you, it humbles you, it prepares you for the weight of what's next. The mistake we often make is trying to escape pain before it finishes its work. But purpose is on the other side of process. And process often comes wrapped in pain. God doesn't waste pain. He recycles it. He uses it to prepare you for what he's already prepared for you. So instead of resisting it, learn to recognize it as a sign that something greater is being formed within you. Trust that the pain has a purpose you may not understand right now, but you will appreciate later. And when that moment comes, you'll look back and say, it had to happen. Because without the pain, you wouldn't have become the person God intended you to be. So stand firm. Don't despise the pain. Discover the purpose in it. Trust is a decision, not a feeling. That's something we all need to understand, especially when life gets tough and emotions run wild. You see, feelings change. They come and go like the wind. One moment you feel confident, the next you feel afraid. One day you're full of faith, the next you're full of doubt. But trust is different. Trust is not based on what you feel, it's based on what you choose. It's a conscious decision to believe that God is who he says he is, and that he will do what he said he will do, regardless of how you feel in the moment. If you only trust God when you feel good, that's not trust. That's convenience. Real trust shows up when things don't make sense, when the bank account is empty, when the doctor's report isn't good, when prayers go unanswered. That's when trust becomes a decision, not a reaction. It's choosing to say, God, I don't understand this, but I still trust you. I don't see the way, but I trust that you are the way. And the reason trust can't be based on feelings is because feelings lie. Emotions are temporary. They are like waves, high and low. But God's word, that's stable. That's unchanging. That's the rock you can build your life on. So when the storm hits and you don't feel strong, you choose trust. When your heart is breaking, you choose trust. When you're tired, when you're confused, when you're afraid, you still choose trust. Let me give you a real world example. There was a young woman who applied for her dream job. Everything seemed perfect. She had the qualifications, the experience, and even a strong referral. She prayed, fasted, believed, and still got rejected. Naturally, she felt disappointed. She felt overlooked. Her emotions screamed, "This isn't fair." But instead of falling into bitterness, she made a decision to trust God anyway. She reminded herself, if God closed this door, he must have a better one. 2 months later, out of nowhere, she got a call from a company she hadn't even applied to. They offered her a higher position with better pay, more flexibility, and a healthier work environment. What looked like a closed door was actually God's redirection. Her feelings said God forgot her, but her decision to trust opened the door to something better. That's what happens when you trust God on purpose. It's not about ignoring your emotions. It's about not letting them control your choices. Trust is the anchor that holds you steady when everything around you is shaking. It's the firm step forward when the path is unclear. It's the yes to God's will even when your heart is hurting. So remember this, you may not always feel strong, but you can always choose to trust. And every time you do, you're building a life rooted in faith, not feelings. That's where real peace, real strength, and real breakthrough begins. God's delays are not God's denial. Just because something hasn't happened yet doesn't mean it's not going to happen. In our fast-paced world, we expect instant results. Fast food, instant messages, next day delivery. So when God takes time, we often think he's saying no when he's really saying not yet. But the truth is, divine timing is always perfect. God doesn't work on our schedule, he works on his. And his timing isn't designed to frustrate us, it's designed to prepare us. Delay is not denial, it's development. When God delays, it's often because there's something he's working on behind the scenes, something in the situation or something in us. Sometimes he's preparing the promise, but most times he's preparing us for the promise. And if we get what we ask for before we're ready, what was meant to bless us could break us. That's why the waiting season is not a wasted season. It's where strength is built. It's where character is formed. It's where trust is tested and deepened. We must stop interpreting silence as absence. Just because you can't see movement doesn't mean God isn't working. In fact, some of God's greatest miracles happen silently. Seeds grow underground before they sprout above the surface. You may not see it yet, but something is happening beneath the surface. God is aligning people, opening doors, closing others, and arranging everything according to his perfect plan. Let me give you a powerful example. There was a man who dreamed of becoming a published author. He wrote his manuscript with passion and purpose, believing that God had placed the message on his heart. He submitted it to dozens of publishers, and every single one rejected it. Months turned into years, and he began to wonder, did I hear God wrong? But instead of giving up, he continued to improve his craft, trusting that if God gave him the vision, he would also give him the platform. 5 years later, a small publishing house took a chance on his book. It started slow, but through word of mouth and persistence, it gained momentum. That book ended up becoming a bestseller, translated into multiple languages, and touched thousands of lives. Looking back, he realized that the original rejections weren't denials, they were delays that prepared him for a greater impact. If he had been published earlier, he wouldn't have reached the same level of depth, maturity, or influence. That's how God works. When he delays, he's not being cruel, he's being careful. He knows what you need, when you need it, and how it needs to come. So instead of letting delay discourage you, let it develop you. Instead of doubting, start preparing. Because when God finally opens the door, you won't have to scramble to get ready. You'll already be ready. Remember this, a delay from God is a sign that something bigger, better, or more beautiful is on the way. Stay faithful, stay expectant. God hasn't said no, he's just getting everything in place for your yes. Speak life, even in loss. That's one of the most powerful principles you can live by. When you go through pain, disappointment, heartbreak, or grief, your words become even more important. Because in those moments, your mouth is not just expressing what's happening, it's shaping what's coming next. Life and death are in the power of the tongue. You can speak defeat or you can speak destiny. You can curse the season or you can bless your future. But make no mistake, what you speak in loss reveals what you believe in your heart. Loss has a way of making you feel powerless. It can make you want to shut down and give up. But that's exactly when your words must rise above your situation. Speaking life isn't about pretending things are okay. It's about declaring that something greater is still possible. It's saying, yes, I've lost something, but I haven't lost everything. I've been knocked down, but I'm not staying down. God is still good. My future is still full. My purpose is still alive. Your words are seeds and loss is the soil. In the middle of your brokenness, what you plant with your speech determines what will grow next. If you speak bitterness, you'll grow anger. If you speak fear, you'll grow anxiety. But if you speak faith, even through tears, you'll grow strength, you'll grow hope, you'll grow the power to keep going. Speaking life is not denying your pain, it's deciding that your pain won't define you. Let me give you a beautiful example. There was a woman who lost her husband unexpectedly. They had been married for over 20 years. He was her best friend, her provider, her partner in everything. Naturally, she was devastated. Everyone expected her to collapse emotionally. And she did grieve. She cried, she prayed, she questioned, but even in the midst of that loss, she kept speaking life. She would say things like, God is still with me. This pain has a purpose. I will smile again. I will live again. People around her began to notice. Her faith didn't erase the grief, but it transformed the grief. Instead of becoming bitter, she became a voice of encouragement for other widows. She eventually started a support group for women who had lost their spouses, and through that group, many found healing and hope. Her pain didn't silence her, it gave her a message, and that message became a ministry, all because she chose to speak life, even in loss. So no matter what you've lost, whether it's a person, a dream, a job, or a season, don't let your mouth agree with the darkness. Speak light, speak promise, speak victory. Say, I'm still standing, I'm still breathing. God still has a plan for me. Because what you speak in the valley will determine how you rise on the mountain. Let your words water the seeds of your future. Speak life and watch life come back to you. Obedience over outcome is one of the most important truths you can live by if you want to walk in purpose. Too often we focus on results, what we want to see, what we expect to happen, how we want things to turn out. But real faith isn't measured by the outcome. It's measured by obedience. God never asked you to control the outcome. He simply asked you to obey. The results are in his hands. Your responsibility is to follow his instructions even when they don't make sense, even when they don't produce immediate rewards, and even when you don't understand why. Obedience is about trust. It's about saying, God, I believe you know better than I do. It's saying yes to his plan, even when your plan looks easier or more comfortable. The truth is, obedience is rarely convenient, but it's always powerful. When you obey, you align yourself with God's divine strategy. You may not see the full picture, but he does. And sometimes the blessing doesn't come before the obedience, it comes because of it. We often think, if I obey, everything will work out the way I want. But that's not obedience. That's a transaction. Real obedience says, even if I don't get the outcome I want, I'll still do what God said. It's not about the reward, it's about the relationship. God isn't looking for people who follow him only for results. He's looking for people who follow him because they trust his character. Here's a powerful example. There was a man who felt led to give a large financial gift to a struggling family in his community. He wasn't wealthy himself and didn't have much saved, but he felt God clearly prompting him to give. He obeyed, even though it didn't make logical sense. He gave the money quietly, expecting nothing in return. Weeks went by, nothing changed. No big breakthrough, no open doors, no sudden miracle, but he kept walking in obedience. Then months later, a company he had applied to long ago reached out unexpectedly. Not only did they offer him a job, but it came with a higher salary than he'd ever made, flexible hours, and the chance to work in a field he loved. He later found out that someone from that family he helped had mentioned his kindness to a connection at that company. His obedience opened a door he never could have predicted. But the key is this: he didn't give to get, he gave because God said to. The outcome was a blessing, but obedience came first. That's how God works. The miracle isn't just in the outcome, it's in the obedience. Your breakthrough, your next level, your open door, it's all tied to your willingness to say yes to God before you see the result. So stop stressing over the outcome, obey the instruction. Trust his process. Because when you put obedience first, the outcome will always follow in his way, in his time, and for his glory. Remember his record. When life gets hard and faith feels weak, one of the most powerful things you can do is look back, not to dwell on your past pain, but to recall God's past faithfulness. In times of fear, doubt, or uncertainty, your memory becomes a weapon, because when you remember what God has done, it strengthens your belief in what he can do. The enemy loves to make you forget. He wants to isolate you in the moment to make it feel like this problem is bigger than your God. But when you pause and remember his track record, everything changes. God has never failed you. He has never broken a promise. He has never left you alone. Even when you felt alone, he's been there in every storm, every valley, every heartbreak, every miracle. His record is perfect. And if he's been faithful before, he'll be faithful again. The truth gives you the courage to keep moving forward, even when your emotions say otherwise. Because sometimes the battle isn't about what's happening, it's about what you've forgotten. Remembering his record helps you shift from fear to faith. It changes your perspective. It reminds you that this isn't the first time you've been unsure or scared or waiting. And every time he came through. Maybe not always the way you expected, but always in the way you needed. That's why gratitude is powerful. When you begin to thank God for what he's already done, your spirit lifts. You stop magnifying the problem and start magnifying the God who has already proven himself trustworthy. Let me share a great example. There was a young couple who had been trying to have a child for years. Every month brought disappointment, and every doctor visit seemed to offer less hope. They were exhausted, emotionally drained, and tempted to give up. But one night in prayer, they began to remember. They remembered how God provided for them when they couldn't pay rent. They remembered how he healed the husband after a car accident. They remembered how God brought them together in the first place, against all odds. That night, something shifted. They still didn't have the outcome they were praying for, but they had something just as important: faith. Their hearts filled with peace. They began to thank God not just for the child they were hoping for, but for the countless blessings they had already seen. And months later, when they had stopped striving and just trusted, they conceived naturally. The child was born healthy and strong. But even before that breakthrough, their faith had returned because they chose to remember his record. So no matter what you're facing today, take a moment. Remember the doors he's opened. Remember the healing he's done. Remember the strength he gave you when you had none. His record is flawless. And if he did it before, he will do it again. Don't let today's challenge erase yesterday's testimony. Let your memory feed your faith. God's record speaks for itself. Family, listen to me. Trusting God in difficult times is not weakness. It's warrior strength. It's standing when everything says fall. It's believing when everything says break. It's praising when your heart is in pieces. And when you trust him in the test, he'll turn it into your testimony. You're not alone. You're not abandoned. You are divinely designed for victory. So walk like it, trust like it. Because your breakthrough is not coming, it's already on the way. Keep the faith, trust the process, and watch what God does next. Let me ask you something. How do you start your day? Because that answer is more important than you think. See, every single morning when your feet hit the floor, you are either stepping into chaos or stepping into covenant. A morning routine isn't just a habit. It's a spiritual agreement between the person you are and the person you are becoming. And if you want to live a life of excellence, it starts before the sun comes up. Most people are chasing motivation. They're hoping they'll feel inspired when they wake up, that somehow the desire to be disciplined will just appear. But I've got news for you. Motivation is a liar. Motivation will whisper, hit snooze. Discipline will shout, let's go. A morning routine isn't about doing what feels good. It's about doing what produces good. Discipline is what builds legacy. And your routine is the training ground where that discipline is forged. Here's the truth. You either command the day or the day will command you. Life doesn't wait. The moment you open your phone, check your messages, scroll through someone else's dream, you've already surrendered yours. That first hour of your day is sacred. It's the only part of the day you fully control. And if you don't claim it with clarity and purpose, you'll spend the rest of your day reacting instead of creating. Now listen, routines aren't restrictive, they're rhythmic. There's a rhythm to success, there's a cadence to purpose. People look at high achievers and think they're lucky or gifted. No, they've just mastered their rhythm. They do the same powerful things at the same powerful time with the same powerful energy until results start dancing to their beat. Your morning routine is the conductor's baton. It sets the tempo for the symphony of your life. And you've got to hit 3 dimensions every single morning: mindset, movement, and mastery. Start with your mind. Get still, get grateful, get focused, speak life, declare your goals, visualize your victory, then move, breathe, stretch, sweat, get the blood flowing and the excuses out. And finally, master something. Read, write, learn, build your edge, grow your value. The world rewards those who multiply their gifts, not those who bury them in routineless living. Because here's the law of life: what you repeat, you become. If you repeat excuses, you become a quitter. If you repeat purpose, you become unstoppable. That routine of yours is not just something you do, it's a mirror of who you're becoming. Every rep, every journal entry, every early wake-up call, it's shaping your identity. And identity is stronger than willpower. Once you believe you're a disciplined, focused, purpose-driven person, you won't need to push yourself anymore. You'll just live it. So I'm not asking you to try a morning routine. I'm challenging you to claim your life back, to draw a line in the sand and say, this is where the old me ends and the new me begins. Not someday, not when it's convenient, but tomorrow morning, before the world wakes up, before the chaos starts, while it's still quiet enough to hear the voice of your future calling out to you. You want to be great? Start early. Start focused. Start now. Because your morning isn't just the beginning of the day. It's the foundation of your destiny. Mornings are not just the start of another day. They are a sacred opportunity. They are a covenant with your future. A promise that you're not going to live on autopilot, that you're not going to sleepwalk through life waiting for things to change. Every morning is a doorway, and the way you walk through it sets the tone for everything that follows. And when you wake up with purpose, with intention, with structure, you're making a declaration to your future self. I'm coming for you. This isn't about having a to-do list. It's about alignment. It's about showing your future that you're serious. You can't want $1 million life and give it a $5 morning. The gap between where you are and where you want to be is bridged by consistency. And that bridge starts being built when the sun rises. When you choose to wake up and take control of those early hours, you're planting seeds. Seeds of discipline, seeds of vision, seeds of excellence. The reason why most people never reach their potential is because they think the future will meet them halfway. It won't. The future is reserved for those who prepare for it, and preparation starts in the morning. That first hour is not just time, it's territory. And every time you use it wisely, you're claiming more ground in the direction of your dreams. You're not just preparing for the day, you're preparing for the life you were born to live. If you look at anyone who has created lasting success, real impact, they all have one thing in common. They don't leave their mornings to chance. They understand that the morning is where winners are made. It's where mindsets are shaped, where values are reinforced, where commitments are renewed. You can't live a powerful life on a powerless morning. You can't expect long-term greatness from short-term laziness. But when you rise early, when you get focused, when you decide to invest in your mind, your body, your spirit before the world starts making demands, that is a covenant act. That is you saying, I honor my calling too much to sleep on it. That is you saying, I love my future too much to be casual with my present. Mornings are not just about productivity, they are about identity. Who you choose to be in the morning becomes who you are when life gets loud, when things get busy, when pressure shows up. And if you've anchored yourself early, if you've spoken to your purpose, fed your spirit, disciplined your body, then when challenges come, you won't fold, you'll flow. That's why the morning is sacred. It's not just the beginning of a day, it's the proving ground for your future. It's where greatness begins. Motivation is a spark, but discipline is the fire that keeps burning long after the spark fades. Too many people wait to feel like taking action. They wait for the perfect moment, the perfect mindset, the perfect surge of inspiration. But greatness doesn't come to those who wait on feelings. It comes to those who move through feelings with discipline. Because motivation might get you started once, but only discipline will keep you going day after day when it's not exciting, when no one's clapping, when results aren't visible yet. Discipline is a decision. It's a daily choice to show up regardless of circumstances. It's what separates dreamers from doers. See, motivation is emotional. It fluctuates. You might be pumped up on Sunday night after watching a motivational video ready to conquer the world. But what happens Monday morning when that alarm goes off and your bed feels warmer than your ambition? That's when discipline steps in. Discipline says, get up anyway. Discipline doesn't negotiate with excuses. It doesn't care how you feel. It only cares whether you follow through. And here's the truth most won't tell you. You won't always feel like doing what's required. In fact, the greater the vision, the more resistance you'll face. But discipline builds strength. Every time you act without waiting for motivation, you train your mind to lead your body. You're telling yourself, I'm in control. My purpose is stronger than my mood. That's where power is built, in the silence, in the sweat, in the repetition. Not when it's easy, but when it's necessary. The problem is, people overvalue hype and undervalue habits. But the person who works when they don't feel like it will always outperform the person who waits to be inspired. Because discipline compounds, it builds trust with yourself. You begin to believe in your ability to follow through. And when you trust yourself, you move with a different kind of confidence, not fake hype, but real inner strength. That's the kind of confidence that can't be shaken by failure, by opinions, or by obstacles. Motivation is borrowed energy. Discipline is owned energy. When you build discipline, you don't have to rely on outside sources to get moving. You become your own generator. And that's where true freedom is. Not in doing what you feel like, but in doing what you decided to do. You're no longer driven by the emotion of the moment. You're driven by the commitment to your calling. So if you want to change your life, stop asking, how do I stay motivated? Start asking, how do I stay consistent? The answer is simple. Build discipline. And discipline is built in the small moments. The morning you get up on time, the workout you finish when you wanted to quit, the book you read instead of scrolling your phone. Every small act of discipline is a brick. You stack enough of them and you'll build a life no storm can shake. Every single day you are either giving the orders or taking them. There is no in between. You either wake up and take command of your time, your focus, your energy, or the world will take it from you before you even finish your first cup of coffee. Life is not waiting for you to get intentional. The distractions are already lined up. The demands are already knocking. If you don't set the tone, something or someone else will. That's why the morning is not just a part of your day, it's the battlefield for your attention. The moment you open your eyes, you're in a fight, not with the world, but with your own habits, your own impulses, your own tendency to drift. You have to decide, will I act or will I react? Because if you don't have a plan, you'll become part of someone else's. Your inbox becomes your to-do list. Your phone becomes your compass. Your stress becomes your schedule. That's not leadership, that's surrender. And people who live surrendered to chaos rarely create anything meaningful. Commanding the day doesn't mean packing your calendar full of noise. It means owning your first moments with clarity and purpose. It's about establishing a rhythm that puts you in control. It's about choosing to start with intention before interruption. When you wake up and immediately check texts, social media, the news, you're opening the gate to everyone else's agenda. You're letting the outside world define your inside world. But when you begin with silence, with structure, with sovereignty, you reclaim the power that most people give away before 8 a.m. The truth is, there are only two types of people in this world. Those who direct their day and those who drift through it. The directors live by design. The drifters live by default. And if you're not careful, you'll confuse being busy with being productive. You'll mistake motion for progress. But motion without direction is just burnout in disguise. That's why your morning matters. That's why taking command is non-negotiable. When you command the day, you don't just move with urgency, you move with accuracy. You're not chasing tasks, you're chasing purpose. You're not reacting to life, you're creating life. And that creation begins the moment you decide to lead yourself before you try to lead anything else. So here's the challenge. Before the world gets access to you, you get access to you. Before the emails, the opinions, the noise, you connect with your mission, you review your goals, you fuel your mind, you align with your values, because the person who commands their morning doesn't need to chase success all day. success begins to chase them. Let the world follow its chaos. You move with conviction, you move with clarity, because once you take control of the morning, the rest of the day starts falling in line. And that's the power of living by design, not by demand. A routine is more than just a checklist, it's a rhythm. And rhythm is the language of mastery. Just like music flows best when it follows a beat, life flows best when it follows intentional structure. You can hustle hard, you can work late, you can grind yourself into the ground, but without rhythm, you'll burn out instead of break through. A routine gives your life that steady, repeatable flow that leads to predictable results. It's the difference between chaos and clarity. See, people think routines are restrictive, that they box you in and steal your freedom. But that's backwards. Lack of structure is what keeps people trapped. When you have no plan, you waste energy figuring out what to do. But when you have rhythm, your actions become automatic and your focus becomes fierce. You stop negotiating with yourself about whether to show up, you just show up. And when you show up consistently, results start to become inevitable. Everything in nature operates in rhythms, the tides, the seasons, the sunrise. And when your life is out of rhythm, you feel it. You feel scattered, you feel behind, you feel stuck. But when your routine aligns with your vision, your life starts moving in harmony. You're not just productive, you're aligned. You're not just working hard, you're working smart. And that's when momentum kicks in. It's because results don't come from what you do occasionally, they come from what you do consistently, even when no one's watching. Rhythms make the hard things easier. They remove the mental weight of decision fatigue. Instead of waking up and wondering, what should I do today? You already know, you've rehearsed it, you've committed to it, you've built it into your system. And when something is part of your system, it no longer depends on your mood. Your habits carry you, even when motivation doesn't. Most people don't fail because of lack of effort. They fail because of lack of rhythm. They stop and start, go hard for a few days, then disappear. But real power comes when your actions become a drumbeat, steady and strong. A rhythm that keeps you moving forward even when progress feels slow. Because here's the secret. Slow progress with rhythm will always beat fast progress with inconsistency. Your routine is the conductor of your life. If you set the tempo right, everything else starts to move in sync. Your energy, your decisions, your opportunities, you become more focused, more grounded, more unstoppable. So don't just chase results. Build the rhythm that produces them. Master the routine, and the results will come looking for you. Every powerful morning routine is built on a foundation of 3 pillars: mindset, movement, and mastery. These 3 areas aren't just activities, they're the core dimensions of your being. If you want to win the day, you've got to align your mind, activate your body, and grow your value. When you touch all 3, you don't just wake up, you rise up. You don't just prepare for the day, you position yourself to dominate it. First, mindset. Before anything else, you've got to take control of your thoughts, because your mind is the command center of your life. And if you leave it unattended, it will default to fear, doubt, and distraction. That's why your morning has to start with intention. Speak life, declare your goals, rehearse your vision, fill your mind with what you want, not what you fear. Because what you dwell on in the morning will expand throughout the day. Gratitude, affirmations, prayer, visualization. These are not fluff, they are fuel. They reset your internal compass and point you toward purpose. Then comes movement. You got to get the blood flowing. You got to send a signal to your body that it's time to show up and engage. Movement creates energy. It wakes up your system, shakes off the excuses, and breaks the laziness off your spirit. Whether it's a full workout, stretching, walking, or just 10 minutes of deliberate motion, movement flips the switch. And when your body is active, your brain is sharper, your focus is stronger, your emotions are steady. You were not created to be still. Movement is momentum in physical form. Finally, mastery. And this is the difference maker. A routine without growth is just maintenance. But when you commit every morning to learning, to developing a skill, to feeding your mind with new insights, you become more valuable, not just to others, but to yourself. Read the book, watch the lesson, write the plan, reflect on the vision. Just 15-30 minutes of focused growth each day adds up to hours of transformation over time. And the person who grows daily outpaces the one who hustles randomly. Mastery compounds, and the morning is the best time to invest in it. When you combine mindset, movement, and mastery, something powerful happens. You become unstoppable. You're mentally locked in, physically charged up, and spiritually fed. You've already won before the world even wakes up. You don't start the day in defense. You step in with offense, with direction, with momentum. This trifecta is how you build a launch pad, not a landing strip. Your morning becomes the platform that propels you toward your goals. Because when your mind is aligned, your body is activated, and your gifts are being sharpened, you stop chasing greatness and start living it. Repetition is the architect of identity. What you do consistently isn't just shaping your schedule, it's shaping you. Every time you wake up and make a decision, every habit you repeat, every choice you execute without negotiation, you're casting a vote for the kind of person you're becoming. You don't become disciplined by reading about discipline. You become disciplined by repeating disciplined actions until they become second nature. Until they're not what you do, they're who you are. The most powerful transformation doesn't happen through occasional breakthroughs. It happens through consistent behavior. You become what you rehearse. If you keep telling yourself you're not a morning person, then guess what? You won't be. If you repeat procrastination, you reinforce hesitation. But if you repeat excellence, even in small ways, you reinforce identity. That's why the small decisions matter so much. The way you brush your teeth, the way you make your bed, the way you honor your schedule, all of it is forming a pattern. And that pattern is either lifting you or limiting you. Most people underestimate the power of small daily actions. They think greatness comes from big dramatic moves. But the truth is, it's the quiet repetitions, the early mornings, the extra reps, the book read instead of the TV show watched. That's where greatness is born. Your destiny isn't built in a moment. It's built in a rhythm. And that rhythm is determined by what you repeat. You want to change your life? Change what you do consistently. Start with the small things. Because if you can't be trusted with the small, you'll never be entrusted with the big. And when you commit to the process, even when you don't see results right away, you're aligning your actions with your future. You're building integrity with yourself. You're stacking momentum. And one day you'll look up and realize the person you dreamed of being, you've become them. Not through a flash of lightning, but through a steady current of consistency. And this is why habits matter. They're not just actions, they're identity systems. Every morning you rise early instead of sleeping in. Every time you push through a workout, every page you read, every promise you keep to yourself, you're reinforcing a belief. This is who I am now. And once your identity changes, your results follow. So stop trying to change your life with willpower alone. Start building the identity of the person who lives the life you want. Ask yourself, what would a focused, disciplined, purpose-driven version of me do every morning? Then do that, not once, but every day. Because what you repeat, you become. And when your actions align with your vision consistently enough, your reality has no choice but to catch up. The truth is simple, but it's not easy. Your future is being built every single morning, whether you realize it or not. Each day begins with a choice to lead your life with intention or to be led by distraction. And the people who rise, who win, who create extraordinary results, they're not waiting for motivation. They're not hoping for a better day. They command the day. They choose discipline over comfort. They understand that routines create rhythms, rhythms create results, and what they repeat they inevitably become. If you want to change your life, stop looking for the breakthrough and start building the habits. Wake up with purpose. Lead your mind before the world gets a chance to. Move your body to awaken your potential. Sharpen your skills to increase your value. Stack those victories early, and you'll carry that momentum into everything you do. The morning is not just a part of your day, it's the foundation of your future. It's a covenant you make with the version of yourself you're becoming. So decide today that you won't live by reaction, you'll live by design. Because when you master your mornings, you don't just change your schedule, you change your standard. And when your standard rises, so does your life. Own the morning, and you'll own the rest of your life.